is literally me. Look at his handsome, chiseled face, his broody and distant demeanor, his pain-struck, tragic stare, his struggle with the world within and outside. He's just like me, for real. Of course, I'm only joking. In reality, I am nothing like him, and vice versa. I've been ironic. I would never idolize a man that goes out late at night and kills people, no matter how much I think they deserve it. On the other hand, I understand the pain of the struggler, trademark, and carrying the soul of a hero in my heart. If this back and forth is too confusing for you, that's perfectly natural. The line between irony and sincerity is blurred, and soon the line between fiction and reality will follow suit. Hello dear viewer, judging by the type of content you probably watch, going off of the title and thumbnail of this video essay that you clicked on, you can predict that you are a
young white man.
I too am a young impressionable man boy that inserts himself into cool Sigma lone wolves to feel like a strong independent psychopath for a minimum of 1.5 hours and up to several days after watching the movie. Are you like me, like him, like you? Let's find out together! This video is about relatable fiction outcasts, a dissatisfying life, hope for a better future, the media, society, radicalization, and a young man in the center of it all. All these elements, and probably many more, create a system like a well-oiled, perfectly synchronized machine. It starts like any circle with the continuation of the perpetual. Boys between 16 or 17 and 23 or even older that feel left out, ignored, removed from the daily struggles and pleasantries that their peers experience sit in their rooms and stare at the ceiling. They're thinking. They imagine what has happened for their lives to be this way and what troubles they will encounter in the future that will further cement their place on this earth as a struggler. They spend a lot of time with themselves and the internet and may or may not come across like-minded individuals. Regardless if by recommendation or not, they will eventually find pieces of media, be it books or movies, that resonate with them. It will feature a character that is similar to them, a person that is unhappy with their life, that suffers physically and mentally from the daily disappointments and the social environments that forced and still forces them into this life. The young male will see a future version of himself, a future that he dreads and feels like he hopelessly propels himself into. But the plot continues, and with all his aching self-awareness, our tragic hero starts looking for ways out and finds despicable people that he can project his problems onto. As the story goes on, he literally starts to fight his demons until he emerges victorious. Free from the torment of self-hatred, free from his once boring, repetitive life, the transformation is complete. The struggling viewer is mesmerized. As for anyone else, they might think it was a good movie or didn't care for it and will soon forget about the story and the characters. There was a time not too long ago where this would have been the end of the circle, but the growing concern about the incel thread in the Western world opened a complex cookie jar for the general public to judge. Radicalized mass shooters originating from hardcore incel groups or similar communities are certainly to blame for this, but a sensationalism has developed parallel to the demonization of otherness through mainstream media. The struggler, or the literally me character, has been heavily tied to these groups and even accused to inspire acts of terror. The boy, who can relate to the otherness and maybe even the loneliness that characterizes the quintessential incel, is now confronted with his hatred and the rejection of his feelings by the media and assumed public opinion. His resulting anger is mockingly set aside as white male rage and fragile masculinity.
But the thing that this movie is really about is white male rage, white male rage, white male rage. Joker!
Wow.
And in this hostile world, he looks for people that experience a similar situation and that shares white male rage. While I'm not trying to defend the boy's subsequent growing hatred against society and in some cases the resulting misogyny, the full responsibility cannot simply be dumped on him alone. Every actor in this downward spiral carries their share of blame, precisely because the wheel keeps turning. And after all the publicity and the mass shooter either dies or gets incarcerated, the storm calms down. And somewhere else, a young man, psychologically and emotionally distant from his environment, asks himself who or what is to blame for his own unhappiness and thus the cycle repeats itself. The average struggler, however, will not succumb to this spiral and mostly only share Sigma male memes in a Discord group ironically. Because these movies are not about radicalizing our impressionable young men, they're not a white supremacy dog whistle, they're at most an entertaining movie and at least a self-insert power fantasy in which the main character breaks the chains of their mediocre, unhappy life and leaves their sore state and their loser mentality behind that they only tolerated and never accepted. Because much like our dear struggler, they sense their own potential, and if only the chance would arrive, they could show it to the world, the girl they fancy, and themselves. But hey, maybe you are a profound, dark, handsome, gloomy, and most of all struggling underdog with raw but untapped potential, with a mysterious air about you. If not, you still yearn for the same freedom. Freedom from your boring life, escape from the pain of knowing that you could be so much more. The pain torments you with sleepless nights, and the successful you sneers at you when you look in the mirror. Just like him, all you want is out. But here lies the problem. To escape their personal hell, the main character resorts to extreme means to achieve their goals. Many of those movies certainly downplay the implications of violence and remove the grotesque from the act of retribution and replace it with a sense of catharsis. I would not denounce these pieces of media prematurely as normalizing violence, but these plot points often do not show us peaceful alternatives. It sends out the message that you need to kill or otherwise hurt bad actors in your environment, sought out unintentionally or otherwise, to achieve freedom. So what is our struggling young man to do? If he does not literally recreate the steps shown in the movie or show, how will he ever get out of this dead end? That brings us to the most unlikely literally me character I will talk about. Theodore Twombly, from the movie Her, portrayed by no other than Joaquin Phoenix, is a complete antithesis to our beloved Sigma psychopath, because he is a beta. He is sensitive, vulnerable, kind and caring, and everything men fear to be. He doesn't show strength by beating up some thugs or by intimidating his competition, and fundamentally he doesn't radically change his life by quitting his job or burning bridges. And yet he longs for the exact same things the others do: love, happiness, a sense of belonging, and most of all, hope for a better tomorrow. But he does something very different in this movie. For context, he's in the process of getting divorced, which is incredibly painful for him, as most of his days he spends alone either trying to distract himself or torturing himself with blissful memories of his once happy life. The futuristic world he lives in is frighteningly realistic. Society has understood the need for kindness and empathy, but never outgrew its throwaway phase and treats these qualities like any product. It's convenient, cheap, and manufactured. Theo, a highly empathetic person, uses his gift by ghostwriting thoughtful letters from clients to their loved ones. He's seemingly the only feeling person left in a world that is devoid of empathy. He feels isolated, misunderstood, and abandoned. His attempts to connect with people all fail. He's stuck in this life and he wants a way out. Seems familiar? Yes, he ends up falling in love with the science fiction equivalent of Siri like a complete idiot, but he solves his inner and outer conflict in a peaceful manner. Ultimately, he accepts the pain from living in an emotionally detached world and the loss of his happy married life, and confronts his emotions with friendly help. He can finally move on. Most people would not proclaim that Theodore Twombly is literally them, because it wouldn't be funny. You deal with your mental health issues and feelings in a healthy way. I run from my problems because it's free exercise. You write poetic letters to your crush explaining your romantic feelings. I bring dates to a neurotic cinema that conveys things to them my words just can't. We are not the same. I call you a beta soy male and you call me an incel. But in the end we just call each other losers and feel hurt by the possibility that maybe we're right. Maybe you are literally me, figuratively. Though the surprising similarities between Theo and a character like Patrick Bateman are what made me consider talking about that movie in the first place. What's more interesting are their differences and how those might have come to be. Judging from what we know from the movie American Psycho, Patrick had a rather privileged upbringing, seeing as his father practically owns the company. It's fair to assume that Patrick has spent his entire life in this elitist bubble and grew into the vain, hateful, and illusory idea of Patrick Bateman while suppressing his true self. There is no place for true feelings in his world. Personal affairs are personal. Whatever you gotta do to stay sane, you do before joining the others in pretending you are perfect or even like it. Theo, on the other hand, grew up in a world that teaches you that good vibes and mindless consumption are conducive to a healthy relationship with others and oneself. Everyone is your friend and offers you their help when you don't need it, but they revoke your good vibes only club membership once you fail the baseline test. He was never taught violence or hatred, and his primary coping options were distractions. Both Patrick Bateman and Theodore Twombly confessed their true feelings at the end of their respective movie, but unlike Patrick, Theo overcame his pain because he expected the change to happen within himself and not his surroundings. It makes me wonder what could have been. After seeing his struggle in this light, I could easily imagine Theo going down to the local presidential candidate speech and attempting to assassinate Charles Palestine to impress his ex-wife. All in all, feeling different and isolated from others is not a crime, and seeing a much cooler and better looking guy on TV going through the same pain and engaging in awesome action scenes to reduce the suffering is fine too. Everyone has problems, no matter how perfect their life seems, and we can choose whether or not we want to deal with them in a healthy way. But my recommendation would be, just talk to a therapist, and if they scold you for trauma dumping, you dump them. Alright, just be nice to yourself. I think it's Gandhi who said it best when he said, be the world that you change so that you can be the world changer. Joking aside, if I had a device that could show me alternative realities in which things would have been different for me, where I would have met different people than I have, done different things than I have, chosen different paths, I would not be surprised if I would have turned out to be somewhat similar to the image that literally me enjoyers have of themselves and the characters they idolize. Would I be disappointed? Would I be proud? Most likely I would take a look at my struggling, broody self and say, wow, he's literally me. And you are free to interpret this any way you like. Thank you very much for watching. I have no idea what to put here, so I'll just show you some monkeys instead. Look at that guy. He's cute. Alright, bye.